What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you tuning in. This is going to be a very raw, honest, and real video. I mean, they all are, but you know what I'm getting at. How I made a quantum leap in my life. How I hypnotized myself for success. How I hypnotized myself to become successful. I'm not too sure what I'm going to title it as exactly, but it's something to the effect of that. And shall I say, for me, the definition of being successful is the journey. It's being on the path. It's walking the path. The amount of money that I'm going to make is always going to change. It's always going to increase. But the mere act of walking down this path to me is what I consider success. And the money comes as a little gold nugget we find along the way. It's a byproduct. But with that being said, I've structured this video in a way that it makes sense, but for you to understand how I did this to myself and how you can do it for yourself, you're going to need to understand what a quantum leap is, and I need to share my story with you. So a quantum leap, when we talk about a quantum leap, how I define that is when we achieve a certain level of action or an outcome faster than what we imagined possible, or bigger or more grand than what we had initially thought was possible. For example, you might think it's possible right now to make $100,000 a year after 2 or 3 promotions or in 3 to 5 years. A quantum leap would mean you do that, you achieve $100,000 a year in, let's say, 12 months or 18 months. Like that is a quantum leap, right? So you have to define what a quantum leap means to you in terms of outcome. Right? People want a quantum leap or a quantum shift into being a successful version of themselves. Okay, well, you have to define what that means. For me, a quantum shift look like, so a quantum shift, I'm talking about like internal traits now, rather than a quantum leap, which usually has to do with an outcome. But a quantum shift for me was shifting from being a lazy, distracted man with zero accountability to being a man with a sense of urgency, a man of focus, discipline, consistency, and sheer will, a professional. That for me was a quantum shift, and that quantum shift is literally just a decision. I decided. There's no magic wand, right? But it's something that has to come from within you. But that's a quantum leap, a quantum shift. So let's get into my story, because this is important. So I always did really well in school, honor roll student, university, dean's list, graduated with an honors bachelor's degree in business, majored in finance, worked for prestigious investment consulting company, top performer as a accounting and finance recruiter, worked a couple other jobs, ended up in IT. But point is, I was always a very intellectual person. And the thing is, I prided myself on that. So I built my self-esteem was built on how smart I was. And I just put a video out about why smart people never get anywhere, or tend to not get anywhere. This is, the whole saying of like the A students end up working for the C students. It's very true. But yeah, I prided myself on being smart. My whole self-esteem was built around being smart. So what happens is, you end up picking the wrong friends. You end up picking the wrong, endeavors, because you are trying to protect your self-esteem. So you surround yourself with people who reinforce the idea subconsciously that you are better than them or that you're smarter than them. And when you end up being around people who are smarter than you, you reject it, you run from it. You feel uncomfortable. And when it comes to making a quantum shift or being successful, it's about shifting your identity from being smart to being a learner. Your self-esteem should be built on progress and not perfection. Being a student, being a learner, always being in the stream of improvement and self-development, rather than looking at yourself as like the smartest thing in the world. That's a surefire way to not make any progress and to stay stagnant and stuck, quote unquote. So that's who I was. And because I was smart, I was very accustomed to being lazy, right? And I rejected a lot of things in my life. And, you know, when you end up picking the wrong friends as a result of all these things, it's not anybody else's fault but my own. Or it wasn't anybody else's fault but my own. And so I ended up having a lot of frustration as to, you know, why am I not getting anywhere in my life? I'm so smart and I'm so talented, but I'm not getting anywhere. And I didn't have the answers at the time. So what I did was I sought out a mentor, a couple of mentors. And that changed everything. At the time, I thought I knew everything. I thought I was being receptive. I thought I was listening to their advice about how prideful I was, about how much of a know-it-all I was. I thought I was receiving that advice. You know, when I started learning about wellness and meditation and the ego and the self and all these beautiful but abstract concepts to me at the time, all I was doing was showing up for the meeting or showing up for the phone call and expecting, and then after the session was done, the coaching session, I would just go on about my day as if it never happened. And it, like, I was doing a little bit of reflecting on it, but I wasn't actually taking actions to cement that change and to internalize that change. I wasn't doing anything about it. So I was treating my progress as a to-do list, which is a one-way ticket to stagnancy. And I remember my mentor, who I'm very grateful for, telling me that, Pablo, you are treating your progress as a to-do list. And I didn't get it at the time. I got it, but I didn't know how to honor my potential. And really what needed to happen was my mentors could only do so much for me, but I had to show up for myself. After my sessions with them, I was supposed to, if I was doing this right, supposed to be taking action on bettering myself, reading, meditating, reflecting, actually trying to become a better version of me. But I was placing all of the responsibility on everybody else but myself. And so my mentors are amazing people, and they tried everything with me at the time. But because I was so accustomed to not taking accountability for my life, because I was just so out of the rhythm of taking accountability, I didn't realize that that's why I was never moving forward. I blamed it on everybody else but myself. And here's the thing. I remember working that recruitment job, and I was the top performer, literally from the time I got there. And there were other people who weren't performing so well. Some people put on probation, some people getting fired. That happened a lot. And people used to be like, oh, you know, the economy's bad. Nobody, you know, we can't get any sales. You know, the method is outdated. But you'd magically see people start to become one of the top performers out of nowhere as soon as, you know, the rent was due, or as soon as one of them was having a kid on the way. They magically learned how to sell, and they magically were able to get results for themselves. So it wasn't anything but the lack of accountability that they had. And that was me for my life. Because I guarantee you, if your life was on the line, or if a family member was gonna die, or whatever it is, God forbid, you would find a way to resolve whatever issues you are so attached to. You'd find a way. I guarantee you. And you know you would. And so because I prided, we will do whatever is in alignment with our self-esteem. And because my self-esteem was built on me being smart, again, I surrounded myself with people who didn't care to hold me accountable, nor should they have. It's not their job. It's not anybody else's job. But in the sense that they just didn't look out for me in that way, right? Because they themselves, they were used to a life of mediocrity. So of course they're going to accept whatever I do. And if you want to know where you're at, a great reflection of that, besides money, is the friends you keep. Are your friends, and friends do one of two things. They either inspire you or they make you feel like it's okay to settle in your life. Either or. There's really no gray area. And that's a real thing. Like you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with or that you interact with energetically. That's very, very true. And I had to, that's one of the hardest pills to swallow, if not the hardest, is letting go of relationships, because we're so attached and invested in that story we build with other people. But that's the one thing that held me back a lot. Anyway, so continuing on, fast forward to 27 years old. I had built my first AI business. It started doing well. I just put myself out there, right? I'm getting to the actual hypnosis techniques in a little bit, but you need to hear this story. So I started my own AI business, was doing pretty well, hit my first $10,000 months, which was great. And then it all crashed. I got banned on TikTok for no reason. This is when TikTok was just banning people left and right for literally zero reason. And I also had had some gum stuck in my mouth. I also had a really bad understanding of how to manage money. I spent. And so I was racking up a bunch of credit card debt, and I ended up getting scammed out of a lot of money. Long story short, I had zero money. I made a video on this before. My net worth was literally negative 10,000. I remember one day waking up and my bank account said, my credit card said $7,000 on the bill. A little more than that, actually. And my checking account said negative 3,000. So I was in a hole over $10,000 deep. 27 years old. My parents starting to rely on me. My bank accounts were all frozen. Couldn't pay any of my bills. Non-sufficient funds, making that hole deeper and deeper. My mother had to bail me out and send me money just to bring my balance back to zero. All right. Bank account still frozen. And that was a very real, traumatic financial event for me. Because I realized right then and there how far behind I was. Not against anybody else's journey or anybody else's story, but my own. And how far behind I was with my own potential. And unfortunately, a lot of us have to wait for traumatic events to happen and real pain to happen before we get our act together. It's unfortunate because it shouldn't be that way. If you're smart, you'd get ahead of it in the good times. But that's what happens when you treat your life and your self-development as a to-do list. That's what's going to happen, right? If you just rely on everybody else, if you rely on an employer to feed you, they can fire you and lay you off at any time. It's happened to me before. I've gotten laid off randomly. It's silly. It's silly, but that's what happened. And so I realized right then and there that I had to make a decision, right? It's Toronto, the Toronto economy, the job economy is screwed. To get an entry-level job that isn't a warehouse, it takes months of applications, right? Starting from the bottom to get a minimum wage job. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to make a decision. And I decided that I was going to get out of debt, that I was going to get out of this financial hole, and that I was going to make a ton of money. And I didn't really know how. I knew it was going to be in a space. I decided that I was going to build a life worth living, that I was going to do work that I enjoyed. I didn't have a plan, guys. I had sheer will, focus, discipline, consistency. I committed to being consistent, and a sense of urgency, because I knew that I'm going to have to be in a position to help my mother out the way she helped me, or to help my dad out the way he helped me. And nobody else could save me. I had the best mentors in the world, irreplaceable. And I spent so much time frustrated at them, at my parents, at everybody else, but myself. And I was like, why can't anyone fix me? Why can't anyone help me? But I wasn't helping myself. And if you look at my day-to-day calendar, what I did every day, I clearly wasn't committed to helping myself. It was very obvious. If I looked at the content I was consuming, the people I was around, it was very obvious that I wasn't interested in helping myself. And I'll tell you this from a coach and hypnotherapist standpoint. People want to help those who help themselves. People will help those who help themselves. When you stop wanting to help yourself, actually, because you know the difference between how you operate when you really want something and when you don't. When you really want it, people will help you. If you don't, it will start to feel like you are wasting their time, because you know the difference. As someone who's smart and intellectual, you know better. So I was dead broke. Meaning if I wasn't living in my mother's basement, I would be homeless, or I would be couch surfing. All right? So I made a decision. Commitment, right? Now here's where the quantum leap part comes in. You probably can't even imagine how much you will start to get done, how quickly your life will change when you start doing less of the baggage, when you start doing less of the stuff that doesn't matter, and focus on the 20% of things that actually matter. And I made another video on this. I believe it was my last video, or the second last video, whatever it was. Go check it out. It's in the last two videos. If you look at how much you get done, or what you get done every day, in the 16 hours we're awake, 80% of that is probably spent on stuff that does not advance you even an inch closer towards your goals. And so I looked at the habits that I was doing every day, the things I was consuming, the content, the people I was talking to. I wrote it all down and I started crossing it all off and saying, I'm not focusing on this, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this. I deleted all the social media apps and I started trying to build a business. I started trying to figure out what I liked to talk about and started posting content on that. Hypnotherapy, manifestation, self-development, self-improvement, that sort of stuff. And the difference here is, the real difference came when I stopped treating things like a to-do list, like a checklist, my life, my progress. And I started treating it as an identity, that I identify as a professional in all areas of my life. Again, this is all advice that I had received from mentors. These weren't new discoveries that I was making. It was just a newfound commitment. A commitment at the deepest level, at the core of my being. I committed, backed with a sense of urgency, is what started to make me unstoppable. And so years later, I made an important phone call to a mentor, really just explaining where I was at and asking to be around them again, knowing that I couldn't blow it this time. And when we talk about doing less, that really means only surrounding myself with people more successful than me or smarter than me. And if it's not that, then nobody at all. If I'm not consuming content that makes me better, I'm not consuming any content at all. If I'm not eating foods that make me sharper and clearer and healthier, then not eating any of those foods at all. I'd rather fast. So start doing less, consuming less content. There's a content overload nowadays. And by walking that path, my life changed dramatically quickly. Like within 3 months, in every area of my life. So that's my story in a summary. Now let's get to the actual hypnosis piece. I touched on this in a previous video, but I'm going to do this again. So I have a bit of an edge in this, in the sense that I have been in the wellness space, studying and reading in the wellness space, and building a meditation practice and studying hypnosis for a while now. But regardless, this can be applied to anybody. Self-hypnosis happens on a few different levels. Number one way is with the words that we say. You need to understand that our words are self-hypnosis. When you are talking, you are hypnotizing yourself. Your words are not observations, they are declarations. You are declaring who you are. You are declaring and scripting out your life with your words. So I stopped talking about the past that I could not change. And I started talking about the kind of man that I am. Whether it's through affirmations or just speech. I started talking about who I am and what my life is going to be. Literally every opportunity I get. I'm a man of focus, discipline, consistency, and sheer will. I kept repeating that. Day after day after day, in the car, in the shower, in the quietness of my own room. I kept repeating that. And I will tell you this as a hypnotherapist, people are so loose with their words, not realizing that they're hypnotizing themselves because they're describing what they see in their current reality, not realizing that their current reality is what it is because they keep saying it. They're speaking a reality, a repeating reality into existence. Self-hypnosis happens on the level of speech. It also happens on the level of exercise. It's enhanced through exercise. Why? Because on a scientific level, exercise breaks us down, releases chemicals, feel-good chemicals from our brain into our body. So change happens on a physical and mental level. And in doing exercise, whether it's me going for a run, or whether it's me doing push-ups or pull-ups or bench presses or squats, I'm getting into a meditative state of focus and repeating my affirmations. That I am a man of focus, discipline, consistency, and sheer will. And I kept doing this day after day after day, week after week after week. And it cemented into the fibers of my muscles. It cemented in me on a cellular level. And when this happens, it's creating an imprint, a subconscious imprint on the mind. And when you create a subconscious imprint on the mind, you subconsciously, without realizing it, look to back that up by engaging in actual action that reaffirms this belief. The third layer of self-hypnosis is scripting. I have at least 5 journals, most of them already filled. Every morning and every night, without fail, I would find myself, to this day, closing my eyes and taking a deep breath, and then starting to open my journal and write down write a whole page as if I am already living the life that I want. And the page might be a conversation I'm having with a friend or a spouse or whatever it is, or what I'm seeing in my giant mansion, or the fact that I just got paid a ton of money, or the fact that I just blew up on social media. I'm scripting this out describing what just happened, describing how beautiful it is. Because what happens is we are training the mind. We are becoming more expansive in our creativity, in our possibility, in our energy. And we are aligning ourselves. We're calibrating our mental compass, our energetic compass with this version of ourselves. And again, you cannot stop there once the journal is closed. Once you close that journal and get up from your seat, you have to act. Put on a performance in accordance with who you are. You have to meet your future self halfway. You have to meet your visions halfway. You have to meet your desires halfway. I had to meet my mentors halfway. I had to meet this version of me halfway. And if you can, they'll pull you the rest of the way. They'll support you, rather, the rest of the way. But most people can't honestly say that they're doing all that they could do to will their desires into reality. Most people can't honestly say that they have done everything they could do. And until you can say that at the end of every day, this is not happening. This is not happening. Success is being in the stream, walking on the path. Because then the outcomes, the money, the cars, whatever it is, those are things that happen as a byproduct that you find along the way. These little gold nuggets. But great things happen to great people. Prove to yourself that you are great every day. Don't rely on someone else to make you great. That's never going to happen. I promise you. Otherwise, it would have already happened. You have to take action and stop having conversations with yourself that don't matter. Ego-fueled conversations and pride-filled conversations to make yourself feel safe and right. Would you rather be right or would you rather be free? And for most of my life, I wanted to be right. And so I got nowhere. And once I wanted to be free, financially free, emotionally, energetically free, time free, well, then I committed to myself. I committed to myself. And now every single word I say, I understand that it's self-hypnosis. And so I never talk down on myself. I never allow myself to talk down on myself because everybody else is going to take that job. I'm the only person I got. And so I talk about myself at the highest level, highly. I know what I'm going to do and I know what I'm going for. I know how this life goes. In the end, when it's all said and done, I win. And even when I didn't genuinely believe that, when it sounded delusional, I said it anyway. And lo and behold, here I am. Muhammad Ali. I always knew I was champion even before I was one. I always said I was champion even before I was one. Do you see how that works? It's self-hypnosis. Start with your words. Step 1. Step 2, use speech hypnosis on top of exercise to accelerate the change. Number 3, scripting every day upon waking and before going to bed. Meditation to support this practice. Hope this helps. If you want to learn about the real manifestation codes, join the Master Manifestors Collective. Put the link in the description. One-on-one hypnotherapy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up. That's all I ask of you. See you in the next video. I'm out. Peace.